The statistics show that 9,000 young people left the employment market. This will give them more of an opportunity to enter back on, get a foot on the ladder, get more experience and become long-term employees. Mr Speaker, this is a good piece of legislation. I look forward to it being passed through its first reading and hearing it through the Select Committee. Thank you.
Brendan Horan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak against this abominable piece of, well, it's hard to say really. You know, sir, sometimes it's hard to believe the MPs who prop up this national-led government live in the real world, particularly after listening to Jamie Lee Ross, but especially when it comes to the wages paid to the ordinary working folk of New Zealand. Sir, since 2008 there has been a steady attack on the rights of workers, with policies by this government thinly disguised as pro-jobs or some other spin-doctored euphemism. The minimum adult wage of $13.50 an hour is apparently, according to this government, hindering employment opportunities for the young. So a lower rate of $10.80 an hour for teenagers starts next April. The government says this will create 2,000 new jobs over 2 years, but the problem is the latest household labour force survey showed 61,700 15 to 24-year-olds are unemployed, and that's up from 41,100 4 years ago. So under the stewardship of Messrs Key, English and Company, there's been a 50% increase in youth unemployment, but they will create 2,000 new jobs over the next 2 years by reducing pay rates. Now that's the sort of twisted logic generated by fat cats, the unscrupulous, who believe they can wallow in their wealth off the backs of hard-working young New Zealanders. Now, sir, nobody minds a successful individual enjoying the results of hard work and ingenuity, but most New Zealanders believe in the concept of a fair go. But not this government. Oh no. The minimum adult wage of $13.50 an hour amounts to about $540 a week, and that's about $455 in the hand, sir. Now, this is a low wage, but many people are still losing their jobs as under this government the economy continues to spiral downward. Now, when National came into office, they gave tax cuts to the rich and they increased GST. The Westpac boss on his multi-million-dollar salary got a tax cut of $5,000 a week in the hand. Now, we in New Zealand First don't believe this is fair. But at least it clearly shows which side this government is on, and it is not on the side of those people who are earning $13.50 an hour, and it is certainly not on the side of those young people who are soon to be earning $10.80 an hour. Now, fairness aside, if we combine this, these cuts, shall we say, with the job cuts, similar to those, such as those in Kiwi Rail, IRD, Solid Energy, and it goes on, and it begs the question, how does this government make any money? How does this government make up for lost taxes? Because when we then add a low wage system into the mix, it becomes obvious that this government is creating a future with a serious shortfall of taxable income because of a low wage mentality, declining birth rates, increasing longevity, and a complete lack of fiscal prudence or responsibility. The economic model that this government subscribes to clearly is not working, does not work, and will not work. Sir, this is a lamentable piece of legislation, and if the government thinks this will in any way create some sort of economic nirvana or contribute as a panacea-type cure for our economically distraught country, then think again. In fact, they should wake up and slap themselves for even dreaming about it. They are plunging this country into a low-wage economic downward spiral. You know, sir, last night this government had the opportunity to show an intelligent, democratic face to the people of New Zealand. They had the opportunity to take Winston Peters' private members' bill, the Reserve Bank Amendment Bill, that would have provided an essential tool to help our country get out of its economic malaise, but no, that bar was too high for this government. Here was a tool where, correctly used, we could put a floor and a ceiling on the New Zealand dollar, devalue by 15 to 20%, reinvigorate the manufacturing sector. That means getting back those 40,000 jobs that this government has lost. We could weight our dollar to our major trading partners to give it relativity, and that would be relativity for our exporters. The floor and ceiling would give surety and confidence, and we could export our way out of this mess. There would be light at the end of the tunnel. You know, the light that this government turned off with their narrow-minded course of austerity. The austerity that is driving thousands of New Zealanders across the ditch looking for jobs in New Zealand, in Australia. The type of austerity that is strangling our economy here in New Zealand. This government demonstrated a complete lack of comprehension of the bill last night because they started waffling on, along with that turned-out prehistoric alligator skin that sits over there somewhere, waffling on about printing money when the bill had nothing to do with that. But such is the comprehension, or lack thereof, of this government when it comes to fiscal responsibility and the economy. Sir, a lot of people have forgotten that it was Winston Peters that saved... Jamie Lee Ross should be listening to this, sir, because it's important that he understand that when the Asian crisis hit, it was New Zealand that saved it, because Winston Peters guaranteed, on behalf of New Zealand, guaranteed the Korean currency, pro rata, with Australia and the USA, and it saved Asia. But a lot of people don't even acknowledge that, so we should perhaps look to history. Sir, last night this government turned their back on the opportunity. They turned their back on the exporters of this country. They turned their back on the manufacturers of New Zealand. They turned their back on democracy, where a great bill could have gone into select committee and we could have heard submissions. Whoopsie daisy. But no, spray and walk away. Sir, we in New Zealand First realise that the government's role is not to be the solution to all problems, but it should play an essential role in promoting economic growth, job security and fairness for all segments of society. Where in this bill is there apprenticeships or recognition of new skills and competencies? This bill will just be a recycled course for cheap labour. Perhaps it's a cycle way that this government has been promising us, but it is a recycle way for cheap labour. And just as the New Zealand public didn't believe that larger classes would make their children smarter, they don't believe that cutting wages will make the economic boat go faster. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chris Ockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As always, it's a pleasure to take over from Brendan Horan, who's just finished speaking, albeit that he did have a bit of a dampener